Welcome to Lax Philly Live on yet another Thursday evening. It's our pleasure to have you with us. And I indeed have the pleasure of having a full crew here today. So instead of me talking to myself, which it's not a bad thing, actually, sometimes it's the best conversation I get in the day, I actually have some really intelligent people with me to try and make me look just a wee bit smarter than I already, well, you get the rest. With me, I've got Sue Walton from beautiful Toronto. Good to see you. I have
Thanks, Brad.
Sean Scott from beautiful Regina. How are
Hello,
you?
you're doing good.
And we have Kevin Nybauer, who has found his way onto our broadcast. So our phones should be fairly silent tonight. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm good. I left a trail of breadcrumbs from like a month ago. I'm surprised I didn't all get eaten, but I followed the trail back. So here I am.
And it is my pleasure to introduce to everybody the commissioner of the PBLA, Mr. Bob Stewart. How are you, Bob?
How you doing, Gary? Thanks for having me on, guys.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Well, guys, if anybody is watching out there and you actually have a question, you can put it in the comment section of the YouTube group there, and at some point, maybe we'll read them. But we had a bit of playoff action this week, and the longest preseason in history is over, and now we actually have games that mean something. Sean, why don't we go and bring it on over to you since your team was there?
Yeah, I guess Friday night was a shocker for a lot of people with the huge upset between Saskatchewan and Colorado. I mean, I don't think anyone had them having a chance against Saskatchewan, but I mean, we talk about playing 60 minutes, and the Rush didn't do that. And credit to the Mammoth, they just outplayed them.
Now, my question is this: what happened with this power failure, or was it BR Live, or what? Because as soon as we came back from that thing, it was a whole different game.
Yeah, unfortunately I wasn't actually at the stadium, so I don't know exactly what went on there. I was getting texts from my parents saying, "Hey, the power just went out," and then yeah, we lost our BR Live feed out here, and yeah, it was a whole new game after that.
Yeah, it woke up Colorado, that's for sure. Who played a pretty good game, I got to admit. They never let Saskatchewan get too far ahead of them, and Dylan Ward, all credit to him. He's former goalie of the year for a reason. Um, the players that are supposed to do this work did this work. What do you think, Sue?
Well, as far as Colorado is concerned, I'm going to say that that's probably the best game they've played all season. And for all the games that were played, it's also one of the most important ones that they have. So it doesn't really matter what they did in the regular season. It matters what happened between them and Saskatchewan, and they showed up to play. and nobody thought that they were going to do what they did, but hey, they made it an exciting game. It wasn't a blowout that everybody expected. A power failure or not, um, Saskatchewan is normally stronger than they were, um, but it's that sort of two upsets we've seen, against Saskatchewan in pretty short order, and that's not normally what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I agree. Kevin, what do you think?
Well, Saskatchewan is kind of, everybody has them on a pedestal, and rightfully so. But this season they did seem to come back to the pack a little bit. Did they come back to the pack, or did the pack catch up to them? I know they struggled mightily in the East, and Colorado was one of 3 or 4 teams. I mentioned this before. 3 or 4 teams, you scratch your head because one week they can beat everybody, and next week they can't beat themselves. And Colorado played the absolute perfect game. We mentioned, Gary, you and I, we mentioned this a few weeks ago about Calgary playing great. Now, can they put more games together? And you're going in facing another juggernaut team with Calgary. Uh, uh, I, you know, it's hard to put a finger on Colorado because even our own hardcore fans all season were scratching their heads saying, what's wrong with them? The coaching's bad. They need to get rid of this guy. They need to get rid of that guy. And then when it matters is when it matters. You know, you could go NFL-wise, you can go 15-0, but if you lose that last one, you lost. And that's Colorado won that last one right now. So, you know, all eyes are on this series. This is going to be getting ahead of myself. They're just Saskatchewan. They got beat. Simple as that.
We've got to give some credit to Eli McLaughlin because since he's been back, the team has been playing much better than they had in during the month that he was out. So if for guys getting healthy, he got healthy at the right time.
Yeah, I agree. We also take a look at Ryan Lee, who's coming into his own now too, and some of those highlight reel goals that he scored. I believe he got the one in midair and then put it in the net while he was still in midair. That's stunning. You know, that's Jeff Shattler kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also the other thing that everybody in Colorado has been complaining about all year is that Joey Capito, he's the transition gazelle and has been the transition player of the year the last few. Probably will be again. But he has been told by the coaching staff to pull up and give it to the offense. So he hasn't been near as effective this year as he has been in years past and in the summer when he plays with the Coburg team. But in this game, how did they win it? Well, he intercepted a Mark Matthews pass, ran it down the floor, outran the entire team, and put it past Evan Kirk. Game over. So if that's going to be the way they're going to play now, Calgary, they need to get a couple of little things together.
That play almost reminded me of Brandon Slade's play.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Very, very similar.
Sean, what do you think?
Well, yeah, and you know what? The thing in Saskatchewan right now, and I mean, you can call it sore loser if you want, is questioning the playoff format right now. There's really no incentive other than home floor advantage to finish first. And in a one and done game, like, are you going to tell me Colorado's going to beat Saskatchewan in a 3-game series? Probably not.
No, I guess, but forever the first round has always been a 1 game. The second round was a 2-game plus a mini game, and then of course the finals was
the first place team would get that bye to the second round, though. So there was
true. But we have more teams now. We
Yeah.
can't stay with that. We have more teams. Now, the question is now, if we really want to talk about things, should it have gone to overtime at all? Because the way I saw it, they reached right into Dylan Ward's stick and scored. As far as I remember, if I got my rules straight, that's a penalty.
Well, they clarified that and said that it was a legal play, but
How? He put
something
his stick inside the goalie stick, who happened to be inside the crease. How is this a legal play? Oh yeah, it's Gardonio. Anything's legal.
anyway, I was shocked by it, but
even hard picks, like, they weren't calling those all night. It was officiating. I mean, it was NL officiating.
Yeah, and that doesn't say a lot. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, if I can jump in on it, I agree. I don't know how that is awarded a goal. You got a referee who's standing 3 feet away. You reach into a crease, even if you don't get the ball, you reach in. That's a crease violation.
Mm-hmm. You need to get a little bit closer to your microphone, Kevin. We're having a real tough time hearing you.
Are we better here?
Much better. Yes, thank you.
Okay, now if you look at the video, 3 seconds before that, a Colorado player had both his feet in the crease. That should have blown the ball dead right there and been a turnover. To me, that was more egregious than the reaching in, because you could argue that to your blue in the face. But if you have an offensive player with both his feet on the crease line, that's a crease violation. Ball or no ball.
Well, needless to say, they get counted, and I guess karma played a part in this, and Colorado's moving on, and Saskatchewan's now signing players or resigning players if we're reading some articles around there. All right, let's move on. Bob, did you have anything you wanted to interject into the in the conversation?
Well, I don't get to watch it as much. I work on the weekends, but I'll say this: it's always hard to repeat when you're the champ. You know, so Saskatchewan probably ran into just something that kind of thing, and not getting a bye in the first round with the new format that just hurts.
Yeah, I agree. But
Well,
we're gonna have quite a few changes over the next little while, and how this playoff thing works. We'll probably even get division realignment if we've seen any of the emails correctly.
story that brings up another point too is Saskatchewan beat Colorado 3 times already. To beat a team 4 times in the season, that's tough.
Real tough.
Yeah, for sure.
Although I will say, as far as the playoff format is concerned this year, I prefer this over the mini games.
Oh yeah, by far.
Okay, like, so if there's a choice between doing a mini game and doing the teams 1 to 4, I'll take 1 to 4 all the time.
Agreed.
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, why don't we head on over to Buffalo for our next game? And this one was, I guess, it was close right until the national anthem. Stu, why don't you take this one to start?
What do you say about Buffalo? I mean, did we think that did anybody really think that New England was going to win?
No, but then again, I didn't think Saskatchewan was going to lose the other one.
Yeah, well, so I mean, it didn't go any differently than I had imagined it to go. As far as games this weekend, the games, the 2 games over the weekend and the 2 games on Monday, I have to say that the Buffalo game for me was probably the least exciting.
Well, between the exciting part, I think, was some of the blown calls. Since we're talking about officiating, my favorite, I think, was the 5-minute attempting to check penalty. I think that was a really a fun one. Last time I checked to get one of those illegal body checking ones, you should make contact, but apparently you don't need to. Sean?
No, I mean, I'm with Sue. That game pretty much kind of went as we thought. As I've said all along, I think Buffalo's a team that's been built this year to win a championship. Anything less to them, I think, at this point is a failure. They're going to have a tough time this second round, that's for sure. But, I mean, again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I mean, this team's built to go all the way.
What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Sean's thing there. Right from day one, they came in with the number 2 and the number 3 pick in the draft, and it was a little bit of a delay with San Diego. So I was thinking, well, you know what? Maybe Buffalo is going to, package the 2 and the 3 to get Stotts, who made it known he wanted to go there. They didn't. They hung tight. They got McKay, and I remember the other kid right now, but McKay has been a big difference maker with that team. And then they doubled down and bring in, you sign Vance, and then you bring in Corey Small, the 2 biggest moves of the off season. And but we got a little bit of a piece of the puzzle missing. So let's see what we can get out of Paul Day. And you bring in Clouche, who I believe he had a 3 or 4 point night in that game. He's not setting the world on fire, but he's contributing. And Buffalo right now, they do not have a discernible weakness. Can they be beat by Toronto? Maybe. But, like you guys hearkened on, Saskatchewan had no business losing. We didn't think that was going to happen. But that's why they play these games. But I think Buffalo, hats off to Dietrich. He did a tremendous job building that team.
Well, I got to interject on this one. Toronto did beat Buffalo 2 out of 3 times this year. As well as the one game they lost by 2 goals, 8-6. So I think the defense has gotten Buffalo's offensive number. Also, if you look at the stats over the years, no matter where Matt Vince has played, Toronto has been able to get into his head, and Toronto's been able to beat him. They've beat him when he was in Rochester. They beat him when he was in Orlando. So this is nothing different. Also, when we get into the game, we'll take a look at the matchups. They were very, very evenly matched, these teams. But as for New England, this wasn't a very evenly matched game. In fact, the game they played a couple of weeks earlier was much more evenly matched.
It
Yes,
really was a number 14 going against number 1, and you could tell it.
yeah, and the more they tried to undig themselves, the more New England got themselves in trouble. They didn't get any help from the reffing department, but that wouldn't have made a difference in the end, anyways. So,
yeah, I just want to go back to the Colorado game for a second, because I think that Ward was really, really on top of his game for Colorado, and they were being called for penalties left, right, and center on penalties that should have been minor, but they were given majors. It was a weird game as far as reffing was concerned. It seemed lopsided.
yeah.
I don't know whether it was or it was my perception that it was lopsided, but reffing has been interesting this year.
I would use abysmal as a word, but Bob, what do you think?
I think Buffalo is probably one of the toughest teams overall. I mean, I think they're the best team in the league. But the only thing about this game, I think, with coming up with Toronto is that that is probably the one team that I see could beat them. In terms of just matchups, loose balls. There's just a lot of things I think that Toronto does that kind of be the antithesis to what Buffalo brings.
I agree, and I hope. Now, one little side note is the toughest thing about watching this Buffalo game for me, and I did make a comment to the group here, was it's one thing when you get your Homer announcers going, but seriously, the Buffalo announcing team, my God, listening to John Gertler go for an entire game is an absolute piece of work. Some of the concoctions he puts up with, I don't know, what is it? Thank heavens for Evans, Wheats' pizzas, and we can go on for days with this thing. The funny thing is the hidden ball trick that the Buffalo pulled. They did it a number of years ago. Tavares pulled this trick, and both times now Gertler's been fooled by it. Just saying.
If I can check in on that, as you guys will know, I covered that game, and that came up, the hidden ball trick. And to me, it wasn't an issue because the only person in the building that didn't know where the ball was the announcer and the goaltender, Jameson. And shame on you. Pay attention. And the defense, hey, ball's over here.
Well, the defense was trying to warn them. They followed the ball. So, oh well. All right, so that covers the weekend's worth of stuff. Now we head into Monday's games, and an interesting fact with this Georgia game. Looking at the score sheet, apparently, there was 8,862 people in Georgia.
Not a chance. That's maybe how many seats there were in the arena, but there were no. If there were, more than 1,500 in the arena, it would have, that's being generous. So I don't know where they're getting the numbers, but they were. There's no way that they were anywhere close to that.
No, not a chance. It was come as your favorite blue seat night over in Duluth, Georgia, and well, thank God they kept filming the same family doing that awful goal dance that they have. That the only thing that came over from Minnesota for anything was that dance. Sorry, Minnesota, that's what you're remembered for now. Sean, why don't you start us off on this gem of a game?
More or less what you expected of the high-scoring game between those two teams. What did surprise me, I guess, the fact is how evenly those teams have played over the regular season. For the most part, Toronto held that lead for most of that game until a late comeback by Georgia. Otherwise, that game probably wouldn't have been as close on the scoreboard.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the first quarter, Toronto was actually losing, but it really looked like Mike Poulin was fighting that ball every time it came. And something that won't work against Buffalo is it actually worked by shooting from Mississauga and having these 45-foot shots that he just couldn't pick up. He just didn't see. And if he did, he would get a piece of it and it would trickle in anyways. Sue?
I have to say that, Poulin has been pretty consistent the whole season, and he hasn't had that many off nights. But that was, he just got back from being on the IR. It was a horrible night for him. He just, and on the other hand, I have to say that there were a couple of goals that Toronto got that they shouldn't have gotten. They weren't even, they were actual gimmies. And they were pure luck. They weren't because of skill or anything like that. So, we did win, but I don't think each performance was fabulous. And it was probably Mike Poulin is better than what he played on that Monday night game, and it was just not his night. So.
Yeah, but he actually recovered it at the half, because I think he's the one who held them in, because Toronto actually was taking it to Georgia in that second half. And pretty much until the last couple of minutes, Poulin came up with big save after big save. Otherwise, this thing could have been in the 20s.
And that was kind of my thought too, Sue, was, Poulin came off 2 weeks heading into the playoffs on injury. Is he going to have to kick off that rust? Maybe the first few quarters, is he going to let a few weak ones in just to kick off that rust?
Yeah.
And it certainly came to fruition. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, a couple things here. You hit on Toronto generally shooting from Mississauga, which would explain the inflated attendance numbers, because they probably counted people who were watching from Mississauga. And probably half of the first half, Buffalo was getting taunted with, "Ha ha, you got beat by Philadelphia," that type of thing. But I think Poulin, to me, it was obvious he wasn't 100%. He got into the game, he got a little rattled, but he's a professional, and like I said, he settled in, and he kept that game close. Toronto, when they're rolling, they're rolling. And Georgia this season, Saskatchewan, they're not the Georgia they used to be, for whatever the reason. I think, you keep your offensive set for 2-3 years. The other teams figure out what to do to compound it or eradicate it, whatever the word is. And Poulin, I think, is taking a bad rap for half a game, but it could have been 20-30 goals if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I didn't get to see this game, but looking at the stat sheet, face-offs, man, that was probably the only thing that kept Georgia in it. And there are two families of fans there that could cheer them on with their dances.
Yeah, it's bring your kid to work day, and if they got 8,000 people there, that meant they went to a store and bought 7,500 mannequins and dressed them up. That's about it, as far as I can see. But true to form, go ahead, Sue.
Those ones weren't doing the dance.
Well, maybe remote controls, some battery-operated ones. I don't know. This technology thing is kind of weird. But, by stats, if you look at the stats of this game, Georgia outshot them 49-48. They out-loose ball Toronto 67-60, so there weren't many loose balls floating around there. And face-offs, they just annihilated Toronto at the dot with Thornberry not in the lineup. It was 25-9. So, yeah, the numbers were in Georgia's favor. The one number that actually mattered was Toronto won 16-14. And again, those last 3 goals in the last minute and a half, pretty much garbage time anyways. All Toronto's trying to do is trying to figure out that the clock needs to have a couple of zeros on it before they do the dance. But hopefully they hold off in Buffalo. All right, I was hoping that Callan can make it here by the time we hit the San Diego game, but he's ironically experiencing a few technical difficulties, so he should be with us soon. But while we're waiting, we might as well go on over to San Diego. And another strange, wacky game, but very interesting and very it was great watching. Sue, what do you think?
It really was an exciting game. You saw that I left the viewing party for the Toronto game relatively quickly because I wanted to make sure I got all of the San Diego game in. It was Monday night was the most exciting day of lacrosse that we had. There were two back-to-back games that were just amazing to watch. Didn't have quite the outcome that I thought that it would be a lot closer, and I actually thought that there could be a chance that San Diego could take this one. It might be a slim chance, but I thought it would be a little bit in their favor as opposed to the way it turned out. So they had their off night too, but they did make it. None of the teams quit.
Now, you said you thought it would be a closer game. We had a 12-11 game that was 6-6 at the half. How much closer did you want it to get?
Exactly. I thought it was going to be a closer game. That is what I said. Yeah.
It was quite the game, though. It had its moments on both sides. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that game was, as advertised, probably the most entertaining game of the weekend, in my opinion. I mean, both teams went toe to toe. No one gave really an inch. And, in the end, hats off to San Diego for an expansion team. To do what they did this year was an amazing accomplishment.
Does anybody know how many people showed up for that game? Because that one was.
They claimed it 5,005.
It looked like there was more.
Yeah, maybe they put him on the Georgia stat, maybe.
Credit for him.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, that's one of these games. I think we all agree with. Just a tremendous game to watch, and a great advertisement for expansion. When the league can go in and say, "Look, this is our newest team. Look how good they did." Yeah, they fell short, but they didn't get their doors blown off. They were in that game. San Diego had a different mindset building the franchise in Philadelphia. They needed to have a winning team coming out of the gate because it's a new market and that they have to sell the product. And I think they did a tremendous job. My hat off to Steve Govett and Patrick Merrill, and to me and Steve Dietrich are the GMs of the year for what they've done. Tremendous game. It's a shame. That's one of those games and somebody has to lose. It's a shame somebody has to lose, but somebody has to win. Just a tremendous game and a great game for the league and the brand and the sport.
All right, Bob, what do you think?
Yeah, I didn't get to see that game. It was a late one, but I will say I second what Kevin said on the expansion. That to be able to put a product like that out first year and compete like that, have a home playoff game. That really bodes well for the league, and then and even just getting some more financing for a future expansion team. It's good that they were able to put such a product out there, and from what I could tell, it was a great game on Monday. So,
yeah,
right now again, I'm going to harp back on this because it seems to be a theme. Is this 5-minute penalty nonsense? The Drew Belgrave 5-minute boarding penalty. The last time I checked, you have to be near the boards to get one of those, not at the top of the crease. Now, his momentum did send him hard into the boards, yes. Was it Belgrave's fault? No. Was it a 2-minute penalty? Maybe. But we got a lot of scoring out of that one. We got a couple of shorthanded goals. We got a power play goal out of it. But was that penalty warranted? No. The 5-minute elbowing penalty at the end of that quarter, also, or midway through the quarter, on McIntosh, again, questionable. Was it elbowing? Yes. Was it 5? Hell no.
I think that the reffing in that one was really off. I mean, as far as reffing was concerned, the only exciting thing that happened with the refs is the guy getting hit.
Yeah.
It was they called a lot against San Diego.
They did, and you know what? San Diego wasn't able to capitalize on the few they had. They went 0 for 3 on the power play, and Calgary, to their credit, they went 4 for 7. There's your difference in the game, the special teams. Yes, San Diego got one shorthanded goal, but that doesn't overplay what Calgary was able to do, as well as Calgary being able to win the faceoff battle, get more possessions, because the other things were even. And again, having a hot goaltender with Christian Del Bianco standing on his head, what more can I say about that? How many times have we seen, a hot Matt Vince or a hot Bob Watson be able to steal a game, or steal a playoff game especially, or a championship game from years past, just by having a hot goalie?
I did think that Frank did pretty good, for being a number 2 goalie going into the number 1 spot. You got to give him credit. He did do a really good job.
Definitely, Skiggs played great this year. He looked like he dropped about 50 pounds, and he was much more mobile than when he played for Calgary, for sure. Sean?
Yep. And I was going to say, Frank looks like he's found some consistency. When I remember him in Calgary, he'd have some great games, and then he just had some stinkers. Looks like he's finally kind of finding some consistency in goal now.
Yeah. Kevin, what do you think?
To see.
My thought on the, I'm number one, and you do you, Gary. Normally, we're not really going ripping on the refs, but it's called for. And I'm just curious, there's 2 in particular. I know LeBranch is one of them, who they just seem to relish being on the camera. Is that part of it? If they were, I'm going to make a call so I can get on TV, and maybe they have an advertising special shoes or something, and they get paid to be on. It's just.
Sorry, Kevin, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry, I was talking away. But my thing was the referees. With some of the calls they're making, are they getting endorsements for wearing a Nike shirt or something, and they just need to be on TV, or is there something they're sitting in the bar later with their friends saying, "There I am."
I'm thinking more there. I think they're more on the side of being too cautious and calling absolutely everything, whether they see it. They might even be going just towards reaction. And then you have the guys like Sean Evans who will play it up to the hilt and look like they were shot, and they're falling for it every time. And as long as they keep falling for it, these guys are going to keep diving.
But if you look at the reffing, just compare the reffing between the Saskatchewan and Colorado game and the Calgary and San Diego game, and just look at the reffing and see how off it was. There was no consistency in the Colorado Saskatchewan game, and they called virtually nothing. And some of the stuff legitimately should have been called, but they didn't get called. And then you go to San Diego, where they just went totally the opposite direction. And I think overcalled. And I think that the penalty, a lot of penalties that they gave for 5-minute penalties should never have been a 5-minute penalty. They were,
my point exactly. Yes, I agree.
So yeah, it was off.
And I pretty much remember, I think that San Diego game, just thinking to myself, oh my God, the refs are going to decide this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they
had a big part in it, and it's unfortunate when you come to this stage and all of a sudden they're going to be the ones that are actually being a determining factor, which shouldn't be happening. I'm gonna just before we get on to this week's games. I mentioned earlier that we have Bob Stewart with us from the PBLA. And Bob, while I got you here, instead of just talking a bit about the games, why don't we start with the PBLA and what is it?
Okay, that's a great question. So, despite Americans being more field lacrosse, there's been a box lacrosse enclave in the city of Philadelphia for quite a long time. Actually, the roots go back to the 70s, but really took off in the 80s. Um, Frank Menschner was a guy who had played box lacrosse. He was on the World Cup team for Team USA that played in the 80s, 1980 World Cup that went out to Vancouver, where there was a Canada West and a Canada East and the Iroquois team. And Frank was the goalie. And so he had this background of playing and met up with the right group of people at the right time. And it was actually a lot of Iroquois players happened to be iron workers and were on a major project in Philadelphia in 1986. And they all kind of got the Rizzo rink in South Philadelphia, and they started a box lacrosse league that became known as the Philadelphia Box Lacrosse Association. And it's been running ever since. So we're a ragtag group of guys, a lot of star power in some years, and other years it's just a beer league. That we go out there and have fun no matter what. Just battle it out on Mondays and Wednesdays every summer, and it's kind of become a little bit of a legendary place to play, and one of those places a lot of guys want to kind of clock in a year and get a season in. Even from Baltimore and New York, they'll face the traffic for a summer, a couple nights of summer, just to get in the league and play once. So that's who we are. That's who we've been, and it's kind of who we want to be. Just a good league in Philly in the summer and have some fun.
That's awesome. Now Rizzo Rink, we've all I've heard many stories about it, but an indoor arena that has rainouts.
You can't make that up. It's literally, and it's the other night we had opening night for the preseason. And we always look forward to this first time you get to go crack the doors open, pop in, and start throwing around. And we get the alert in the afternoon about the rain out. And theoretically on that one, it wasn't a rain out. There was no rain in Philly on Monday, but it was a flood out. And that's usually more than half the time it's because the rink got flooded. But we've actually been rained out. Like, it's not flooding, it's rain. There's rain in Philadelphia. We are indoors and we are getting rained out because the rain is pouring through onto the floor. And it's really something to see. There's been a lot of the short story to it is I-95 that runs through Philadelphia and up and down from Florida to Maine. I-95 roadway is the roof of Rizzo Rink. The rink is just basically an outdoor rink built under I-95. And when the floods hit the I-95 highway structure, it sometimes finds its way through and gets in. So PennDOT, Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, has tried a few fixes, but it's made it a lot better in the last few years. But we still get rainouts, so kind of charming, kind of annoying. It's depending how you look at it. And I think when you're ready to play, it's annoying. That's for sure.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah. Now you had mentioned Frank Menschner, and Frank is known for being quite the card. You have a few little anecdotes about him?
Well, man, I'm not sure what is this a family broadcast. Frank was actually pretty good, clean fun. I shouldn't say there was anything like R-rated, but he was definitely a character who pushed the line with some jokes. But I roomed with Frank in Prague a few times, and he was in my wedding. We were best friends. He was more or less the best parts about Frank were the jokes, just jokester type things. We had a trip to Prague. We flew through Paris, and we got delayed. So we're sitting, 18 of us, sitting around for like 5 extra hours in Paris. And the worst part about, how airline delays go, you don't get the forewarning like, hey, it's going to be 5 hours. Because if it was, we'd all got our passports and went into town.
Right.
But it's going to be an hour. That's another hour. It's another hour. So we're like, oh, come on, man. And someone got a brownie and was eating the brownie and takes a bite. It's like, oh my God, this tastes horrible. And Frank grabs it, rolls it up, makes it look like something that you do in the bathroom. And he's like, come here. So we go over to where about four like planes would I'm trying to think of the right word, basically like tunnels where you'd come off the plane and they would converge there. And Frank threw the brownie onto the ground and we just waited. And then as people come off the plane, and you know how you are when you come off a plane, you got your carry-on, you got your kids, you're anxious, you probably got delayed in another airport. And as soon as they walk by the brownie, Frank just starts, hey, watch out for the poo-poo. Watch out for the poo-poo. And all these people are jumping. And I mean, honest to God, I think I can still feel the pain in my back from laughing so hard. He was the oldest guy on the team. Like he was probably in his late 40s at this point. And there's all these kids on the team. And none of the kids are playing the poo-poo game. It's the 40-something-year-old dad of the team is the guy who's rolling up a brownie like that. And it was so juvenile, but so fun and genuine at the same time. He knew, hey man, this crew, we're losing it. We're all going to be angry. We're going to roll into Prague just depressed and annoyed. He made it fun for 5 hours. We laughed and laughed and laughed, and it wasn't because we were drinking and getting drunk. We were just laughing at stupid stuff. That's who he was. He knew how to do it right, you know. But probably a lot of other stories I could tell. I have to think about him first.
Sure, no problem. Now, one of the other things I was told to ask was about. I know Jim Fee is a big Peterborough guy. Some of the trips to Peterborough now that MSL season's coming up.
So yeah, I actually was unfortunate. I never got to go on the Peterborough trip. The one time that I was literally driving from school in the afternoon, we got the call and the trip got canceled because a few last minute cancellations on our own part. But those trips were legendary, and it really actually led to the Prague trips because it was we knew we could do a travel team. People wanted to do it. People understood it. People knew how much fun it was. But man, they'd go up there and play against just guys like Grant Senior and Grant Junior, and when Grant Junior was a kid, and he was like a teenager, and they'd play, and they just have some phenomenal games up in Canada. And I think we probably have a handful of guys who can hang with those guys, but when you get to the depth, it's just not there when you're coming out of Philly, But those guys played, and they played hard, and they ran. They could run with the senior B and just maybe mix it up with teams. But those trips were legendary. Joe Fee was a big part of those trips.
Right.
And some legendary stories out of all parts of Canada as they start driving around and Niagara Falls. But yeah, unfortunately I didn't get to go on those trips. That was right before I got into it.
Right. Now you're the commissioner of PBLA. You played for I'd say for quite a while. Do you still play, or is it just strictly doing the commissioner thing now?
So I'm just doing the commissioner thing. I played for, I guess it was about 18 years, give or take a year. I retired, a lot of back injuries, a lot of concussions, and I had about two years where I kind of felt like I wasn't really contributing as well. And then I went all out. Actually, it was Frank told me he wanted me to play for him one more time. I'd played for the Reapers earlier in my career, and he wanted to play with me one more time. My brother was a really good scorer, and he's like, "Look, why don't bring you guys in?" And we ended up losing a lot of guys to the pro league that year. And we were supposed to have a really good team, and a lot of guys. We lost about 3 or 4 guys went into play in the MLL, and so we kind of went back to the old ragtag PBLA, just hard hitting, bruising team, which kind of was my speed. But I was hoping for the championship with the good players. But we lost our face-up guy, we lost a scorer, whatever. And but that year was like I had a really good season. I felt one of those things where I felt like I was really contributing and all that. And so I said, you know what, that's it. I'm going to retire on that one. And I called it quits. That was, I think, 2011. So fast forward, I got 2 young kids, and coaching my kids and other sports, being a married guy, trying to get work all good. I stepped away for about 2-3 years, and then I was coming back into the league as to help Frank and Steve. And this was 4 years ago, and unfortunately, Frank passed away totally unexpectedly. And actually immediately before the season, like during the preseason 4 years ago.
Right.
And Steve was the guy who needed to do all the work, and that was really tough on him. Steven Amarato is the president of the league, and he's a friend of mine as well. And there was a no question thing that I needed to then move from that number 3 role, which would be support, and go into a number 2 role and take a leadership role and really help Steve roll with get things going. And I did. So we didn't know what we were going to be called, because Frank used to call me the Pope of the PBLA. So it was an unofficial title. If I said it, it was Bible, and it was the way it went. And because he knew I was going to be fair. So we were going to call myself the Pope, but then we thought, some people might cringe at that. So
Gee whiz, I wonder.
We went with commissioner was what we came up with. So basically I call officially, Steve runs all the business. Steve runs anything technical with the league. And I do all the rules, dealing with the officials, dealing with the players. I also handle press, media, if we have anything like that. And I'm kind of picking up more and more of the business part. I'm doing the jerseys this year. There's some different things, but Steve and I complement each other really well. He's a straight shooter. He's the guy who makes sure you're everything's, all the T's are crossed and the I's dotted. I'm kind of like, yeah, everything will work out just fine. We'll just get there and show up, and we'll do a great job. And he looks at me like, you're crazy. And so it's a good complimentary type of thing. I keep him loose. He keeps me in line.
Oh, awesome. I had one final thing to go on with you, talking about the media.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. Well, I was hoping that Callan would be on, but he, like I say, was experiencing some technical issues. It's just his turn this week. Understand that you have a play-by-play person. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I don't know if he's still awake. Cade, you awake? Caden, come on down, bud. I'll bring him on. He's went to bed already, but we have a Sixers playoff game here tonight, so I let him watch the first half. He's supposed to be in bed, but I'll give him a break. Let him come down. It's early enough. My wife. Don't tell my wife.
I won't say a word.
So yeah, we it was. Come on in, bud. So a couple of years ago, we were looking at making the league a little better, and how do we do things to make it more for social media, for just media, just to make it better. We've been keeping stats forever, like at least since the 90s we've been keeping stats. I think we do have paper stats somewhere back to the 80s, but we've been online. We were one of the first leagues on the internet, keeping everything in, and I thought the next level is putting these games on, either recording, doing a recording and putting them on YouTube, or hey, why not? Let's go live stream. Let's just do this thing and put it on. And guys who can't get down to Rizzo, or guys who used to play in Rizzo who are like me, can just tune into Facebook and just watch a game, just feel it again and see it. We have friends in Prague. It's late. It's like early morning for Prague, but they'll see it on my profile or something. And I thought, well, it's kind of tough when you turn on the game and you're just looking at a video, and our scoreboard's not the most well lit when you're talking about a camera. And I thought, I need a play-by-play guy. But I don't like myself as a play-by-play guy. So I thought, who can I get? And I have had my son, who's been just totally into play-by-play with sports his whole life. I mean, the kid was, first story about him is 2008. He is 18 months old. And we turned the Phillies game on. The Phillies are having a phenomenal season. They end up winning the World Series. But this was just like a regular season game on a Saturday. And I turn on the radio, and Harry Callis is reading a commercial, not baseball. He's reading a commercial, or he's just talking to the color guy. And immediately my son yells, "Phillies!" And I'm like, I look at my wife like, and he recognized that guy's voice, but it wasn't like baseball. He wasn't saying, "Hey, big hit," whatever. And ever since then, he's been really good at just like calling games, and he's an announcer at everything. If he's doing something with his toys, he's announcing it. And I said, you know what? We sent him to a sports broadcasting camp. So we had a little bit of, technical instruction and stuff. And I said, listen, I'm going to give you a microphone. I'm going to hold the phone. I'm going to shoot the game. You're going to talk. Just do your thing. And he's like, what thing, Dad? I said, just do your thing, man. Just call the game. Just tell me what you see. Tell them what you see. And he jumped in there, and look, man, he's not Harry Callis yet, but maybe one day, but he does a good job. I'll let you say hi, Kate. You gotta say hi. You're on YouTube right now.
How you doing?
This is Kate. Say hello. Say hello. Project it. Say hi. He's usually chatty. He's probably a little nervous
Oh.
to get the team out of bed. All
Katie,
right.
how
I'm
old is
just mom's gonna walk out and kill me.
No, you're in trouble. Go
how
ahead.
old is Caden?
I just turned 12 in March.
Okay.
All right.
And how many games have you called?
Maybe since mid-season of last season for the PBLA, so maybe 10, 15 games.
Probably not that many, but close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Yeah, we can
So-
always use more talking heads in the industry. Definitely. People are tired of listening to me, that's for sure.
But he does a nice job. You know, he's not a lacrosse guy, so we're trying to teach him. He's a baseball guy, and that's his favorite sport. So I don't know what I did wrong in life to get cursed with a baseball kid, but whatever. We'll deal with it.
At least they like sports. Let's give it at that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right.
Well, that's great. Thanks. I really appreciate you coming on with us today.
Oh, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
And hopefully we can do a few more of these things, especially through the summer. And you can update us on how everything's going with PBLA.
Absolutely. We'll have bring Caden on. We'll do it. He's not in school then, so he can stay up as late as he wants. But yeah, we could definitely give insights on what's going on in the PBLA, the players there. It's looking to be a good season so far. The defending champs are. I talked to their captain the other day, and he's getting his players poached. He feels it. You're the king, and you get knocked down real quick. So hopefully he'll be able to recruit and keep his team solid. He lost his goalie, and he's losing a couple other key players. So we might have a real challenge for the defending champs, that's for sure.
Well, again, thanks a lot. I appreciate all the stuff, and it's interesting as hell. I love hearing about it. So if you want to hang out with us, we're going to just take a look at the upcoming games. And then, Kevin, did you want to give us a little bit of NCAA updates?
Yeah, there's it's the busy season. The Division III is just about every team in D3 is in playoffs in some way, shape, or form. So they're slimming down. They're down to their Sweet 16 finally. Division I, Marist took on UMBC. The nicknames of the teams just led me to some humorous anecdotes of UMBC or the Retrievers. So I put that as Retrievers won. UMBC retrieves a win, and they played Marist too. I found this funny. The Red Foxes. So those of us of a certain age went for that humor, and they suffered the big one, Elizabeth. And UMBC wins that game. They go on. They play Penn State Sunday at noon, the number one ranked team in the nation. And I'll cut it short because there's so many other games going on. But Lax Philly will be live at the entire championship weekend, May 25th through 27th. Saturday is the Division I semifinals, the top four, of course, and then a lot of people, including myself, think Sunday's games are the best. The D2 and the D3 championships, those games are flat out tremendous games. And then Monday will be the Division I finals. So, the Pennsylvania, Philadelphia people are hoping for a Penn State Penn final. But, that's basically where it's at now. Everybody's fighting, scratching, and clawing in the NCAA right now.
Cool. All right. Why don't we bring ourselves up to this week's games? We have 2 games, and the winners are going to the finals. Oh, why don't we start out with Friday night's game with Colorado traveling to Calgary? And Sean, out west, why don't you give us a prediction?
Well, as a Rush fan, it pains me to say that I have to pick Calgary. But I mean, they're hot at the right time right now, and you definitely have to second think it after what Colorado did to Saskatchewan. But I mean, pretty well Calgary's clicking on all three phases right now, from offense, defense, and transition. And I just don't know whether Colorado can keep up to it. I can definitely see this one being a low-scoring defensive battle, though.
All right, Sue, what do you think?
Well, I'm going with the underdogs this week. And so, I think that Calgary is definitely the favorite to win. And they have some really, great guys in Dobie and Dutch and in Dixon. But my vote is behind Colorado. I'd like to see Colorado, if they can beat Saskatchewan. I can't remember what their record was against Calgary this year. Does anybody know?
Offhand, I don't. I'm pretty sure Calgary was
2 out of 3?
I think so, because Colorado, they didn't get their first win until midway through the year, right?
Yeah. So, but they're coming together at the right time too. And there's no doubt that Eli was definitely healthy in the last game. So if they can shut down Saskatchewan, there's no doubt that they could do it. It's a matter of, are they going to show up in the jersey? I mean, they did something smart in the Saskatchewan game. They actually traveled to Saskatchewan a day earlier. And the other thing that was interesting about the Saskatchewan-Colorado game was that was the first time Colorado ever won in Saskatchewan. So, it was like the odds were against them right from the beginning. So, I'm going to go with the underdogs this weekend. It doesn't matter much to me, which team in the West wins. So, good luck to both teams, and give us an exciting game. That's all everybody wants, is to see an exciting game, and I think that we can count on Lee and McLaughlin for sure. But there are a couple of Jake Rouet. When Eli's in the mix, Jake's game gets better.
Right.
So I mean, they have the possibility. I would say the odds are against them, but I'm gonna bet on them this week.
All right. Bob, what do you think?
Well, I haven't watched enough to see what I think the prediction would be. What I think would be the matchups there. So I'd have to defer to you guys on that. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Kevin, what do you think?
Well, we're looking, Sue has made some great points on records, and they haven't won here and they haven't won there. And my thing on that is the old sports axiom: you put it across any sport, get into playoffs. That's the thing. You get in, you get hot. Now, there's a double-edged sword with Colorado. Yes, they're hot. Yes, they beat the defending champion. Now, do they sit back on that and just say, hey, we beat Saskatchewan, and kind of let down? This is where coaching staff comes in, and they say, so what? This is stuff that we've learned at 6, 7 years old, play each game. So that's what I'm looking at. Calgary, again, we've said it. I've said it many times. They can beat when they're playing. They can beat any team in the league, but when they're not playing, they can lose to any team in the league. So, will Calgary continue their hot streak for 2-3 more games? I don't have my crystal ball. Actually got repoed last week, so I don't know. But I'm going to say that this is going to be a 1 or 2 goal game. It could go into overtime, but I'm going to have to lean with Calgary on this one.
All right. Now, me personally, I'm going with Calgary. And one of the things, or a couple of things that Calgary's been all year long, they've been explosive, 1, unpredictable, 2. And I think that you can't forget that they have this goalie also in Christian Del Bianco that can absolutely just steal a game for them. Now, you've got Dylan Ward on the other side, who hasn't been as much money as he's been in years past. But again, former goalie of the year, I'm sure that he'll be up for the game. My biggest question is this. Yes, Colorado beat Saskatchewan. And yes, it was probably the best game they played all year. Is that the best that they have? Is there still something in the tank? Or is that just it, a one night juggernaut where everything clicked? And then they're going back to the Colorado team that I've watched most of this year. They have the players, between the McLaughlins, Rouet, Capito, Ryan Lee. Yeah, they have the players, but so does Calgary.
I'm just going to jump in on the Colorado side of things. When the season started, they weren't doing too badly. Things fell apart the moment Benny got traded. When
Benny
not
doing badly, they didn't win a game until like the 6th or 7th week.
It's true, but if you look at just the guys in the players themselves and them in the mix, there was, they were a working team and they did work well. Once Ryan Benesh got traded, they seemed lost, and it took them a long time to get into the groove. Now they found their groove, towards the end of the season, but they didn't have a groove the first part of the season. So if they're going to find one, now is the time to do it. This is a one and done thing. I think that the Saskatchewan win probably will boost their confidence a little bit more. So they'll go into this game knowing that, one of them is going to win, one of them is going to lose, but I really do believe that they're both going to fight hard for it. And, I think that the Calgary is a favorite without a doubt. And I'm obviously the lone soldier here, choosing Colorado to win the game. But I think that, don't count them out. Calgary is either on or off. Colorado has been off most of the season, but they finally turned on. And if they're going to turn on, now is the time to turn it on. So I just don't know you don't know what Calgary's going to do, because they're either hot or they're not. So, and Colorado has been not all season, and now all of a sudden they are. So, I hope it's a good game. I think the two goalies, Ward and Del Bianco, I think that are probably more even than Toronto, and the Toronto Vince and Rose. I think they're at par. Or I'd call them on par. Maybe right now Del Bianco is having a little bit more of an edge over Dylan Ward, but I think both of them have been really, really solid.
All right.
I was kind of thinking that myself, Gary, too, when you're talking about what's left in the tank for Colorado. Because Colorado really wasn't supposed to win that game, so to speak, was that their championship game right there?
Yeah, kind of the point I was getting at, yeah.
Yeah, like, was that their peak right there? And by all means, I agree with you, Sue. I don't think this is going to be a walk in the park for Calgary. The favorites. It's going to be a close game. It could come down to really a last possession for all we know.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, so that brings us to the last game of the week, and that is Toronto going to visit Buffalo in the Eastern Division Final. And Sue, why don't you start us off here?
Okay, well, so my pick for this game is I'm going to stay with the underdogs. I think I'm going with Toronto as the win. Toronto has been fairly consistent at getting under the skin of the Bandits. They have also had a pretty good record of psyching Vince out, at least this year. So, I've seen them, a few years back, we saw them play in Buffalo, for the champion, for the semifinal game too. And, they were the favorite then. The stadium was full. They had, home floor advantage, and Toronto pulled away with the win. So, they have a chance. I think that it will be an exciting matchup. I think that Rose will have to mimic Vince, because there's no question in my mind that Vince is going to stand on his head if he has to keep stuff out, and that's just what his nature is. So, Rose can be on or off too. So, I hope that he's on. But if I'm going to do the underdogs, I'm going to go all in on both teams, and see what happens.
All right. Kevin, what do you think about the Toronto Buffalo game?
Yeah, I've done some thinking on this, and I've listened to some input you've given me, and I totally agree.
Kevin, can you speak into your microphone, please?
I think Toronto can get to Vince. They always have. And I think also Buffalo has a couple of loose cannons here who you can kind of put a glove in her face and give them a shove after the call, and namely Sean Evans. I think if they do some pressuring on him and some trash talking, Sean Evans, unfortunately, his MO is he generally takes a bad penalty again. He's been really good this year, but the year is not over. So I think it may come down again. It's to me, the two best teams in the league right now. And I think Toronto can get under the skin of Buffalo. I think the key is the same key that I said that they had last week. Get a lead and sit on it. Run 25, 26 seconds off that shot clock every time. And then, if you don't have a shot, roll it in the corner. Just kill the time. Just don't fall into that bad habit of forcing a shot with 25 seconds on the clock. Buffalo will kill you that way. So I think patience, and maybe instigating a little bit with Dane Smith, a little bit with Evans could be the difference.
All right. Sean, what do you think?
I may be the lone guy going Buffalo here. I don't deny what you're all saying, but at the same point, this is the playoffs. You can throw, all the stats out the window from the regular season. I believe, when Buffalo went out and got guys like Small and Vince, they went all in, and they know it. I think, again, it's going to be another great game. I think both games will be excellent games, but I just think that Buffalo's going to have that slight edge.
All right. Now, me personally, I obviously I'm going with Toronto. I don't think we're actually taking it out of the bag there or anything. But here's my theory. Now, you're talking about Buffalo being built for the playoffs. Well, Toronto wasn't built for the preseason. They match up very well offensively. Yes, they have Small, or yes, they have Evans. Yes, they have Smith. Yes, they have Fraser. But Toronto does have a gentleman by the name of Schreiber, another one by the name of Hellier, Lintner, Jones, Powless. I can keep going.
And
Where I think Toronto, you can't forget Cree either. He has transition. But I'm thinking also that the transition team in Toronto is probably the best in the league when they're healthy. And lo and behold, they're healthy. When you have guys like Sorensen, you have guys like Burns, you have guys like Edwards. These guys are all primed, ready, healthy. And I think they're going to give Buffalo's defense, which isn't great to begin with, fits. And if it wasn't for Vince, I think that Buffalo would show a lot more cracks than we're seeing. And I mentioned it earlier, Toronto's history with Vince, as they've been able to get to him during the year, during the playoffs, many, many, many times, more than any other team. And I'm sure they'll be on their best to be doing that again. So I'm going with Toronto.
This year, we have sort of been blessed with Challen Rogers. He's done a lot for the team. And don't count him out, because the two things that he's doing really well is he has a fabulous transition game. But since they started him on the power plays, he's really doing well. The biggest question that I have is who's going to do the face-offs. because that is where we were weak in the Swarm game. And if we don't figure that out, we're going to be in trouble with Buffalo. Because
Well, I haven't heard anything, so I'm hoping Thornberry is going to be back in the lineup. I'll know Saturday afternoon, but until that point, it's going to be Cree who's going to be taking the faceoffs because he's the only one there other than Magnuson who isn't playing that takes faceoffs.
So, I mean, I hope Jay's back, but we had a really crappy time in the faceoffs.
Well, the last 2 games have been abysmal in the faceoffs.
So, I mean, if it's that kind of game and we're going to do that against Buffalo, that's just not the team to do it with. So, if there is a weak link, I will say that is the weakest link that Toronto has. And I think that Buffalo is stronger with that. I mean, the smart thing for me to do is pick Buffalo, but I'm just going to go with the underdogs here and stick with it. So,
all right, that brings us to final thoughts.
Why
don't I start, Kevin? Why don't you start off with that?
Yeah, you're talking face-offs here, and I'm just going in the spirit of face-offs. I'm going to say 2 words: Trevor Baptiste. He was the best in the league. How'd that work out for Philadelphia? You can win them all day long, but if you can't convert, what good is it?
You know what? I'm going to challenge you on that one because I know that Trevor Baptiste is good, but I think that Jake Withers did a really, really good job. And if I were going to if I had 2 guys and I had to pick one of the 2, I'd be picking Withers.
Isn't it ironic that both of the faceoff guys are 1-2 in the league? Neither of them are in the playoffs.
Exactly.
Just saying.
It's kind of one of those stats. It's weird. It just, you think it would mean something, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
It gives you more possessions, but you have to. Kevin's right. You have to do something with them. Bob, before we go away, any last words for everybody?
No, man. Thanks so much for guys having me on. I've really enjoyed just being here, listening to you guys. Talk about the game going on right now and the previews. You really know your stuff, and I appreciate you allowing me to chat about the PVLA.
Oh, it was our pleasure, believe me. Sue, any final words?
Let's play great lacrosse this weekend. We have a Friday night game and a Saturday night game. You're going to be down in Buffalo. I'm going to be down here with the viewing guys. Let's just go out there and make it an exciting game. It's all or nothing. And so play it for all and for both sides. Nobody wants to watch a game that's a total blowout.
Right, I agree. Sean, what do you think?
With the rush out now, it's going to be a little bit quieter around here. But obviously, we just made those 2 big signings. It didn't, Derek Keenan didn't waste any time getting Rubish. It was a big one locked up, as well as Corbeil, which, I mean, really another great defender, but you can't discount his leadership as well on that team. And, just from out here, things still don't slow down. Keep an eye out. We'll have some coverage on the Alberta Junior A League. It starts up this weekend, so it'll be exciting stuff.
I've got the Buffalo game that I'm going to be at on Saturday, which I'm excited about, covering it for Lax Philly and being with the roadies as well. So there will be 20 people against the 15, 18,000, whatever is in Buffalo. That, if you're converting into Georgia numbers, is 121,311. just so we're clear.
Is that
and that's for roadies.
It's going to be more than 18.
But and with MSL around the corner, I know the Excelsiors are having a practice tonight. They might have just finished. So that's right around the corner too, another week or so away. And away we go with it. And the summer is off and running. So for Sue Walton, for Sean Slatt, for Kevin Neibauer, and again, our special guest, Bob Stewart, I want to thank you all for joining us here in Lax Philly Live. Tune in again next Thursday when God knows what we'll be talking about then, but we'll figure something out. Come see us then.